Welcome everybody to data management and metadata are boring, which is what I usually hear. Why should I care? And my subtitle is From Chaos to Order, because I often see data files that just look like utter chaos, and then they want me to put them in some sort of order. And it kind of makes me crazy. So my name is Peg Gronemeyer. I'm at the University of Illinois. I am a field ecologist that focuses on, I used to focus on large African predators. Now I work for an epidemiologist and we do tick and tick-borne disease research. I sort of fell into the data management role because nobody else would do it. And it would just drive me batty to see files everywhere and things like that. So, first things first, this is what I'm thinking of, okay? We want to go through and understand some argument of why data management and metadata are important and why resources that would protect that investment. Also to understand the basics of what I mean when I say good data management, okay? Lots of best practices and tips and tricks and any questions that people have. Would you rather, a quick poll now, would you rather do more slides or more live demos of me clicking things? And if you have NEARC on your computer, you could follow along. Preferences?
If you're for more demos, could you raise your hand? And you can do that through the chat or the participants, excuse me.
Hand. Oh, I see a lot of hands. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we have, there's some of both, but I won't, I was going to skip demos if people didn't want that. The other thing is, and I think I saw the polls. So a lot of you have experience or a lot of experience, right? And so does my plan, does that pretty much fit? Does anybody have a preference that we do something different? Everybody is good with this? I guess shout if you are unhappy, maybe.
Or you can also put it in the Whova chat if you want to do it that way.
Okay, so we've got people that are pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
I think so.
So, caveat, if I get going too fast, just slow me down because I try not to drink a lot of coffee, but I tend to get really going sometimes. So as scientists, as GIS analysts, we learn all kinds of things, lots of concepts and tools, but we're almost never taught data management or basic file organization. And a lot of people don't know what metadata are, much less have created it, okay? My initial disclaimer, I am not the expert on data management. People do things differently. However, if you look up best practices online, you will tend to come up with a lot of the same best practices. So everybody does their own thing, but there are a lot of standards that people could follow. Okay. One reason for data management is that the amount of data is increasing exponentially. 44-time increase from 2009 to 2020. And you can see the increase in data. And we're now into zettabytes, which I had never even heard of. I found a few factoids. 90% of the data were collected in the last 2 years. And every 2 days, this boggles my mind. This one especially. If you burned all the data, you would make DVDs that go to the moon and back twice. And just on my own computer, when I keep things clean, there are just Mongo mounds of data, okay? So we have to do something about this because otherwise we lose those data. So again, why else would you care? The cost of bad data management is so high. I couldn't even appreciate it until I started looking for real numbers. Businesses and universities or organizations, they actually go 15 to 30% of your annual revenue. That's the estimate. 9 to 14 million annually. That's a lot of money. If you have it, so to put it in perspective as a researcher, if you have a research grant for $250K each year, okay, you're going to lose $37,000 to $75,000 to bad data management. $75,000. I mean, that's more than I make, right? And you know, on a big level, it's 3 trillion a year, trillion with a T. So these numbers just horrify me even more. So it's real, okay? The one way to sort of frame this so that other people understand it is the 1-10-100 rule, or rule of 10. You'll see this applied in especially in business, but you can apply it really to a lot of different things. And the idea is when you're first entering data or collecting data, it costs you $1 to make sure it's entered correctly or collected correctly. If you don't do that right then, and you have to clean it up a little bit later, it's going to cost you 10 times that. And if you really don't do it, then when somebody needs the data, you're going to have to spend $100 per data point to clean it up, okay? So the idea is it's an exponential increase. And I have experienced this firsthand, and it just, my biggest conundrum is why people fight it so much, even just basic quick stuff. So it's expensive, okay? And good data management also decreases the risk of data loss due to all kinds of things. Natural disasters, because you would have backups in another place, right? Bad formatting is a big deal. So that's why data should be stored in CSVs, text files, that kind of thing, archived. Software or hardware failure, that happens a lot, and human error is a huge amount of it. Lack of institutional commitment, where you're not given the proper time or tools to maintain the data. And malicious attacks, like ransomware, this is a new thing that I found just yesterday, actually, that it's estimated that by the end of 2021, there's going to be a ransomware attack. Now, that's pretty scary to me. And I did just update all my backups. So the other thing that people don't often think of is that good data management can really improve your career, your reputation, and your integrity. Reputation is a big, big deal, right? And it has gotten me jobs because I have a reputation of eye to detail and being accountable. So these things can really benefit your career, okay? You gain credibility and recognition. It's easier to share, and that's always a good thing too. So this is the big one, is scientists in court. Can you imagine being a climatologist, testifying to Congress, trying to argue that climate change is real, and you better have your data well taken care of and easy to present and easy to put your hands on, right? So good data management will help you with that. Real life experiences. This is from the USGS website. And this happened actually at a place I was at also. We contracted some work out to a contractor, and the people that arranged it did not give the proper data standards. So, we said, well, it has to be 50 centimeter resolution, but we didn't say that. And so they gave us 5-meter resolution. And so guess what? All those data are no good, at least for that point. Okay. And in this case, to redo it cost $65K. In our case, it cost over $200,000. That is just, when I just think about how much research that money could fund, I just can't, wasting that kind of money just makes me absolutely nuts. So where are the data coming from, right? All kinds of things, field data, lab data, data loggers. A big thing nowadays, social media, right? Think of all the free satellite data and all the data loggers. So lots and lots of different sources. And the thing is, these are just the raw data. We have backups, versions, analyses, papers, reports, emails. There are millions more files that you have to keep track of that have important information in them. Okay? This is what it makes me feel like. And it's just a real scary feeling. Briefly, what would people consider are characteristics of badly managed data? Can you just type those in the chat or the question, please?
So you can type this in over in the Whova app on the page where you link to this meeting. Okay, we got one was inconsistent naming conventions, file formats, no date information.
Oh, that's just, yep.
Yep.
We have a lot of people who have been burned by somebody else's bad management, huh?
No standard folder structure, duplicate data, no source information.
Yeah, you guys got it.
I would add also no structure to what are the appropriate attributes to enter for any specific field.
Right, right. And that's a big one. These are what I had come up with sort of just off the top of my head, basically the same things.
Data without accuracy description, no unit information, no life cycle.
Yeah, the metadata, which all is in the metadata, supposed to be, right? And those are lacking, even with people who are relatively vigilant. So we all know what it means. Okay, so we're going to talk about benefits, which most of us can imagine also, but you have to sell it sometimes to people who control the money. So good data management, it increases the impact and visibility of your research and promotes new uses. If you have mammal data and already collected at a place where I'm looking at ticks, and you have data and those mammal data are clear and obvious of what they are, I can use those in my tick work because they're hosts, right? So you can get more worth out of the same data set. And so it leads to new collaborations between data users and data collectors, creators, maximizes your transparency, and accountability, which in this day and age is a kind of rare. And it really enables the scrutiny of research findings. So again, think of a climatologist testifying in front of the Senate, and you need to be, your results need to be transparent, clear, the data need to be tidy and well documented. And it also encourages improvement and validation of research methods. And it reduces the cost of duplicating data collection. I've seen this a lot. You guys probably have too. somebody goes to collect, oh, well, we need this weather data, from 2 years ago. Well, we already have those weather data. We already have this information. The other thing is data management is a key part of geospatial strategy. I don't know if anybody went to any of the talks with the geospatial strategy stuff earlier in the conference, and the FAIR data principles, which are becoming more common and basically findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And this is all data management and as well as well-structured data collection and things like that. But if your data are all over the place in a mess, you can't find them. Nobody can use them. And they're just almost useless. So, quick summary: when data are well organized and documented, verified for accuracy, and they're well archived and accessible, right? Everybody's happy. You get high quality data, easy to share, citation and credibility for you, the researcher, or whoever the person is associated with the data. And it's a huge cost saving to science in general. So before we go farther, questions? Any questions or comments on any of that? The next parts are no more philosophy of why we're doing this, but actual application.
So if anyone has a question, you could raise your hand and we'll call on you and you can unmute yourself.
And it might not be. This was all probably stuff we were sold on.
It's probably because we've all struggled with bad metadata.
We've all struggled, yeah. So that's fine. So
I think we can move on.
Okay. So what makes data management good, right? So best practices and all kinds of tools. First caveat, everybody does things differently. The way you organize your data has to make sense to you, okay? And in a small number of situations, you will have to break your own rules, okay? For perfectionists, your data will never be 100% clean and tidy. Your files and folders will never be perfect. Don't even try. It's okay. It's just new data are coming in all the time or whatever. But if you have everything set up, when you get new data, you can incorporate it and not spend a lot of time doing it. And then there's always unforeseen things that happen. So when you're thinking about how to structure or whatever, follow best practices at the beginning, ideally, of a new project or a new job. The sooner you can start with a basic structure and organization, the better off you'll be. But you have to be realistic and balance the efficiency and the exactness, the detail level with how much time you have, right? Because I don't know anybody who has enough time at work. And so you have to think, is the structure that I want to put in place and the level of detail, can that be maintained? Can I maintain that over time when things are really busy, whatever. So if this is the spectrum of chaos to order, I tend to shoot for the blue violet, okay? So I think, if I have 80% of my files well organized, and if I have, now I'm not talking about only 80% of my data being accurate. I'm talking about the organization part. So this is what I shoot for, the high end, but it's not going to be perfect. The other thing is you're going to have to adapt. You can start out with an informal sketch, however you want to do it. And don't forget that data management applies to non-data files, okay? It's not just the feature classes. It's all the other things that go with it, the photographs. We just had a field camera gives 2,500 photographs over 4 days. So it's not just what we think of as the data files. And you will likely outgrow your first plan. So you have to adapt and, revisit it and then adjust as you grow bigger, especially as the project grows bigger and it has more collaborators, you're going to have to adapt it. That's okay. If it's organized and clean, when you have to change something, it won't be as hard. And so, big soapbox, don't reinvent the wheel. Use existing tools, best practices, templates, listservs, and don't forget to include your non-data tools like time management. I use Clockify. It helps me really track where I'm losing time. And you can Google efficiency tips, Okay, USGS has great data management websites, web pages. Data One is also very, very good. Stack Exchange, for me, it's a little programmer-like, a little high on the code for me because I'm not a programmer, but it has a lot of good information. Penn State, Stanford, I have a lot of links at the end of the presentation that I can share with you. So the other little point that I want to make is we all have, most of us have a lot of experience, okay? I started doing GIS in 2000, 2001. Some of the little tricks I figured out with ARC3 don't work anymore, but a lot of the things do. So I can't remember yesterday, much less 20 years ago. So I began basically a notes section in a Word doc, and I use Microsoft Styles so I can create a table of contents. And I'm going to actually switch to that and demonstrate. So what I do is I keep a daily log of notes. Okay, you should see a Microsoft Word document on your screen. So every day I scribble down, I type because I can't read my own writing, what I've done, real basic, real informal. Nobody else can read my abbreviations. And then periodically I go through those notes and I extract the relevant information for ArcGIS. I also have one for Python, for Microsoft Excel or Word, okay? So then I get a document like this. This is the table of contents. I use Microsoft Styles, which I really hated when I first started using them, but I've gotten better at. Because these are linked, I can easily see the main topics. So I can easily go to it, okay? I now have 20 years of notes. I have a good solid 15 of tips and tricks with GIS, which I can also use for teaching or whatever. And I can search in Microsoft, okay, using the find function. And once you get these styles set, you can just copy them to a new document. So you don't have to redo the styles every time. If anybody wants a template for styles, they are welcome to ask me. Can you see up at the top, the styles boxes here? So I created an ARC Survey 1231. I created a Python style. I created a date style that worked for me. And then the other thing I do is I put a tag in front of my ArcGIS stuff especially, okay? So that I can search for hashtag A in my document in my full notes and I'll get a lot of hits. So it's old-fashioned sort of note-taking, but it has saved me many times, not just with GIS, but with documenting what I was doing that day. So just suggestion. Let me go back to okay, is that the correct screen? You see my screen with my laser pointer? Okay. Okay, so that's my big plug for that. So data management, right? We know it's important through the whole life cycle, and it's not easy, very time consuming. So start with the simple and easy things first. You get the most bang for your buck, okay? Folder and file name and structure, even before you get to the data, can save you a massive amount of time. Use dates in your file name or both. Also, be careful of defaults, okay? How many people have saved a file and it went somewhere into my documents or desktop or users, whatever, right? So reset where, for example, Microsoft saves your documents, okay? Automate as much as you can to, especially for obviously repetitive steps. Also use shortcuts and bookmarks, tags or keywords, and then periodically you're gonna have to clean up. So I'm gonna go through each one of those, okay? If there's particular things, again, just interrupt me. And if people want these slides also, I'm willing to show them. So folders and file names, right? We want to be able to tell basically what the file is without opening it all the time. So descriptive names, no special characters, no spaces, only underscores or camel case, capitals and lowercase combined. This is not helpful, right? For a folder, these are much better. It tells you a date, even if it's just a semester, okay? Likewise, data, and we have all seen data titled spreadsheets, is no good. Instead, you have a descriptive name. This is actually an article, and the 155.full was the default name. So rename it something that makes sense. And the other part is that these sort of best practices, they also apply to tables and field names, okay? Don't put spaces or special characters in your field names and make them descriptive when possible, okay? Try and keep the names short, not always possible. However, this is a long title. This is still long, but it's a lot better, okay? And it's not just a convenience. I have run into issues where because of the path and the file name, I have parts of it cut off. So Microsoft cuts off a path at 260 characters. Okay, this has 320. So you have to try and stay short, but not too short, which is not always helpful. Get more folder names. Be consistent, 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 consistent with your abbreviations, with your structure, with your standards. Okay, camel case is a wonderful thing. This is my standard for literature. First two letters of an author, underscore, year, underscore, basically the main words of the title, abbreviated when possible. Okay, this was particularly important that I knew that this was a hierarchical Bayesian crazy test statistic thing. So this is extra long for me also, okay? When you're doing your folders and files, use the same abbreviation. One of our projects was historical tick work. To a computer, usually, this capitalization, this, and this, right? They're all different. And if this was lowercase h and lowercase t, those are also different to a computer. So pick one and stick with it. As an aside, specifically, why no special symbols or spaces? And I had to look up like the specific reason why sometimes at least it would cause a problem. And what somebody said was you increase the chance that a buggy piece of code actually mishandles the file name. The issue is there's not a little window that will pop up that says you have a space in your path way up at the beginning. You need to fix it. Okay. Remember this long file name? Okay. See that space between my documents? I had an actual issue. It took 2 GIS people a total of 9 hours to find an error because somebody was running a tool in GIS that they knew how to run, and it was just, it would run and then just not show anything, nothing. No, and it was like the error 999, nothing helped, right? And it was because a space way up here. So 9 hours of work down the tube because of space. There are all sorts of help online, example worksheets. There are just so many places to find help that it can be overwhelming. So when you find something that works for you, stick with it. This is an example of sort of a cheat sheet for yourself, especially when you're getting started. So you would describe it, you would give examples. Here are your best practices to remind yourself, okay? There are also examples of naming conventions. And once you get something that works for you, you can document it. So these are all cheat sheets for your own use. These are all from the University of Illinois Data Research Data Library webpage. I can, again, that link will be in the presentation, or I can send it to you if you can't find it. Okay, examples of bad file names. I want to point out, just because you standardize them doesn't mean they're guaranteed to be helpful, okay? Now, while I did not have a file called Walt Disney World, I did have files with that many letters, okay, before I had the actual content of the file. So if I'm looking on a small screen, all I see is Walt Disney World, blah, Walt Disney World, blah. Okay, I can't see these, right? There are times when you're using older software and they'll cut off at 50 characters. Don't do this, okay? Instead, okay, this was my reaction, literally, okay? If you have a bunch of files with the same set of words, put them in a folder with that set of long words and then have the file name be short. So for example, and abbreviate, WDW, Walt Disney World, Florida, FL, standard abbreviation, trail, okay? That is something that shows up and you can understand. So examples, real examples of file names that I've come across. Oh boy, this one was a doozy. You can see there's a lot of duplicates, okay? The names don't tell you anything. There were over 1,800 files, okay? Here, this was somebody else, slightly better, at least there was an author, still duplicates. You can see, it's hard to see on my small screen, there'll be the same author and year and an _2, or slightly different named, but the same thing, okay? Then you can have something well organized that at least is a start. So you've got descriptive names, you've got them separated by subject, and you have standardized file names, mostly. I saw an error in here somewhere that I missed my standard process of naming that I need to fix. So structure files and folders in a logical hierarchy and nested. The goal is to have, remember in kindergarten, what doesn't belong with this group, right? You want the things that are similar in the same folder. Use subfolders to organize them. Establish a single top root folder. Don't use My Documents. Don't use the default Microsoft. Okay, on mine, I'll show you an example in a little bit. I have a top folder for everything that I do to separate from the standard operating system files. There we go, sorry. And then I have another one that has all my work stuff, okay? So archive projects that you need to keep, put them in a single archive folder so you always have them. And create a folder, this is a suggestion what I do. I create a folder for out of date files or draft data or documents that I need to clean up my files and folders, but I don't know if I can get rid of them. So I just put them in a subfolder and I'll call them different things like sort these out later or something that makes sense to me, okay? Examples. Here's 175 files. Look for the common words or subjects, okay? The blue are all wildlife diseases. The red is all eDNA. The green is all more spatial modeling. And so you can take 175 files and put them in this with a few folders, okay? And these extras, remember I said that it's never going to be perfect? So this is an actual screenshot from my, okay. What happens is I get to everything cleaned up. I don't know what to do with these and I run out of time. So I have to leave it like that. Rule of thumb for me, if my files don't fit on my whole screen, when they're too long to fit on a screen, they need a subfolder. That's what works for me. Again, it has to work for you, okay? Data versions or V1, V2, whatever. The goal is to make sure you don't save over a version you need. Use standardized dates, ideally ISO, which is international standards, so that, and almost all software will recognize this format for dates. However, ISO doesn't work for me because I switch my numbers. So if I have 10/11, I don't know if it's October 11th or November 10th. So I use this with text for the month, okay? It's how it's gotta be. So again, I talked about how it's gotta work for you and there are exceptions, okay? Note that the sorting order doesn't work as well. ISO will work perfectly. This does not. It's something I accept though. Some people will use the version 1, 2, 3. I prefer dates. And versioning software like Git or GitHub or your own standard of versioning is a good idea. I have in almost every project, I have a folder like this, delete when done. Again, things I'm not sure I can get rid of just yet. I put them in this folder, sorry, to get rid of them, to make space and keep the files tidy. And then at the end, I'll go through them and I can see if there's something I need. Okay, again, worksheets to help with file structure. It can give you sort of a template and a good start. And again, these are found all over the web. I said it before briefly, beware of default settings and don't use My Documents. The other thing is when you're first saving, take the extra 5 seconds and put it in the correct folder. Or if you really don't have the time, put it in a temp folder or some single folder, and then make sure that you promise yourself that you will go back and look at it later, right? Because, I mean, would you ever really look in this folder for a document? No. So don't accept the default file name. Also, this is at an actual default file name. It tells you nothing when it was downloaded from the web. Okay. So questions, comments, anything.
So there are a couple questions in
Okay.
the Whova app, and one is, can you address governance in one of the upcoming sessions, looking at things like how do you enforce data management standards? I think you touched on the ISO standards, but there may be more when we get to metadata, I'm sure.
There are metadata slides, but this is a problem that I wish I could say I had good suggestions for, because I see that as a major problem in, for me, academia, that very few supervisors or administrators or managers, whoever it is, will enforce some of these best practices. I was at one of the places I worked at, my boss did actually give me that power to enforce metadata creation. They needed my GPS to collect data in the field, and then I had to correct that, do a differential correction, and I was the only one who could do that. So when they collected their data and I corrected them, they didn't get their data until they gave me metadata. But that was rare. So I have a lot of frustration trying to get people to think about file names, folder structure, and if you don't have a big stick, it's really hard to do. You really need buy-in from higher ups, and usually it has to come down to convincing them that the cost, the monetary cost, is so great that it's to their advantage to enforce some of this. But I see that as a huge problem. I don't have very good solutions for that, unfortunately. If anybody does, I would love to hear it. So, okay, anything else?
I don't see anything else right now. So I think we can move on unless Ian, I think Peg addressed your question more specifically than I did. Are you okay with the answer, or do you have anything to follow up with? Sorry to put you on the spot, but I want to make sure you got a good answer.
No problem. I think she did answer specifically to the idea of enforcing those standards rather than the ISO stuff. I do see there is another question after mine in the list now, though, about geodatabase organization.
Oh, yeah. Let me find that one. Oh, there is another question. Thank you, Ian. Any thoughts on organization within geodatabases, since you can't make folders within a geodatabase?
Yes, actually, I use a lot of feature data sets, and I also use multiple geodatabases. I use the feature data sets as sort of a folder, okay? And again, good descriptive file names, and really important to tag the metadata that goes with it in ArcGIS or whatever you're using. So if we have time, I can show you, I have, for example, a base layer geodatabase, which has roads, boundaries, everything, downloads from the web that are not things I will be editing. And there's a lot. So I have featured data sets within that geodatabase. One of them is boundaries. One of them is admin. Another one is, I think, natural resources or natural areas. And that's how I use those feature data sets, which I never used otherwise, unless you're doing topology, right? I never really used them until I realized I had this need for something that's similar to a folder function. So does that answer?
Yeah. Have you ever had any issues with using feature data sets as a folder? That's actually something I used to do all the time to organize my geodatabases. And then I was told at some point that it was like sort of a taboo Esri thing to do for some obscure reason that I still don't understand. And so now I don't do that, but I've never had an issue with doing that. So I'm kind of wondering if
I've never had an issue. However, I know, everything has to be in the same coordinate system.
Right.
So there is that. That's the only thing I know of.
Yeah, I mean, I still privately think it's the best way to do it. But yeah, there's
There is
some.
one additional issue of doing stuff in a feature data set, and that's for the schema locking of every item in the data set itself rather than individual feature classes if there's multiple people editing from a geodatabase.
So if you have shared geodatabases and different things like that, then you might run into an issue. I do not. So I wouldn't run into that issue, but that's a really good point. Maybe that's what people were talking about.
Yep, that could be. And then with multiple geodatabases, we've sort of run into the issue of like one project having 5 different geodatabases and having duplicate data, one version of something within one geodatabase and one version within another. So we tried to go to just having one geodatabase for a given project and then using a similar naming scheme to what you showed, where you sort of, create, like if you had base map data or like roads or something, you have a abbreviation at the beginning, then an underscore and a description, stuff like that. And that seems to work okay.
Right. And the other thing, when you said that, it made me think of is I also have, so I have a project, tend to have a project folder for all GIS stuff associated with that project, a regular folder, not a geodatabase. And then within that, I will sometimes have other folders. So for instance, I had historical tick data, and I also had actively collected tick data. And eventually they were going to go together, but not until everything got cleaned up and a lot of things happened. So I actually had a real folder that said historical tick GDB and another folder that said active tick or something GDB. And then within the folders, I had geodatabases. So it's the same idea. It's just I actually do use a full folder.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
Sure.
Andrew has put in the chat for everyone a link to the MassGIS Data Viewer toolbar. It's a great tool for GIS data and metadata organization. So there's a resource to look at.
And will I have access to that, Carol?
I think, yes, you should. It's on the Whova side of the chat, not in the Zoom chat. The Zoom chat's been disabled if anyone is looking for it.
Okay, I just don't want to go get it right now.
No, the idea is that we're using the Zoom Q&A or the Whova Q&A and the Whova chat. So this will persist after the conference so that you will all have access to it.
Perfect. Okay.
And
Great.
so the conversation actually could continue because even though the title says boring, there's a lot we want to talk about data management and metadata. So keep that in mind also. So
right. And that, that title was, I had like 30 seconds to think of a title, and I'm like, and I hear so much that, oh,
Well-
metadata are boring. So.
Well, I always tell my students when we get to the metadata section, it's like metadata. No one really enjoys putting all that metadata in and getting everything exact, but boy, do you want it when you download the data. So put your time in.
Right. I mean, it's critical, but it is hard to get people to do it. So we'll actually hit some other sort of less official metadata. So, okay, so should I move on?
I think so. I think it looks like everything is been answered for right now.
Okay, and I actually had, I missed this. This was my stand up and stretch. Everybody a little bit of a break. I need to get a drink of water, so I'll be back in like 5 seconds. Okay, my favorite part, automate repetitive steps. Give me an idea how many people use some sort of automation. Doesn't have to be Python, but some sort of, Pro has the workflow function now and things like that. So give me an idea of how many people actually do this. Or if you want to do it and you just haven't gotten to it yet.
So Python for transferring. Someone has the exact same answer. I'm thinking, keep meaning to get to it.
Right.
FME to find and archive old projects. Couple of FMEs.
I have never used FME, and I'm pretty weak with Python. I do use it, not to its potential, certainly.
R is coming up, which is also
Yes.
something I keep meaning to get to.
And that's actually what my next step is, because Pro's data management is weak. I'm going to probably move into R as much as possible for
And
that.
then geoprocessing scripts to auto-populate fields.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. Okay, great. So there is a lot of experience. A lot of, I wish I could get there, right? I know how that goes. What did I just do? Oh, so automate repetitive steps. I would tell my students, if you're going to do this more than a few times, figure out a way to automate it, because now especially there's a way to do that for almost anything, whether it's Python or a batch or whatever. So, and if you need to learn Python, there are so many sample scripts that you can copy freely and put your own file names in the right places. So this is just from ArcGIS help, from an individual tool, sort of at the bottom. It gives you sample code, and it doesn't solve everything, but it does get you quite a ways along the way. Another thing, there's so many tools in ARC anymore. I was so glad when I found the delete field tool. Okay. It's actually, especially with like census files, right? There's like 50 fields. So don't do it one by one if you have more than a couple. The workflow manager in ARC, which I actually have not used, that's something I've been trying to get to and have not. There is a YouTube, automate the boring stuff, and YouTube, of course, has all kinds of things. Batch tools, this is sometimes people forget about these. They can save a lot. And in ARC Pro, sorry, and notebooks in Pro, or in ArcMap. A little bit of a rabbit hole, okay? To get script, to get started, you're going to run a tool, and then this is in ArcMap. In the results that you go to the geoprocessing and go to results, if you right click on the tool name, there we go, you get this option and you can copy the Python snippet, okay? It'll actually be the code. And then you still, again, you still have to adjust, but since you just ran it on your feature class, it will have the right feature class. In Pro, and this is where this is nice. If you run a geoprocessing tool and you go to the history tab, you get more options, okay? You go down here, right click, and you can actually have it open. There's a send to Python window. It will actually dump all the code into and open a Python window and dump the code. And I was going to go into Pro or Map and show you, unless people, so we're halfway through the slides and we're more than halfway through the time. Do people want a demo, or do we move on to other stuff? Quick.
You can indicate that with a thumbs up if you want to go to the demo, or a thumbs down if you really don't want to go to the demo. Or we can be neutral and then Peg gets to decide what she wants to do.
Well, if that's the case, I want to go into Pro because.
Well, I'm seeing at least one thumbs up, so you've got some agreement.
Okay, all right. So I'm gonna just go into Pro real quickly, if I can get the right screen. There we go. Okay, you should see our Pro with Illinois counties. And so that nobody freaks out, it does, this feature class does say false data. Okay, the data are all, I put in all kinds of names and species and I changed numbers. They are not real data. They say things like Botswana and they're in Illinois. So I hope that is obvious. These are not real data, okay? So if you run a tool, a buffer tool, say, okay, you pick your input feature, right? You let it, in this case, I'm gonna send it right to the default, all right? You don't know what size buffer you want, say. So you're like, I don't know, 50 clicks, right? You run it, okay? It creates your buffer, which obviously didn't work well. So go into the history. This is the analysis tab, history. And I gotta move that. Okay, you right click and go here and you see, well, for one thing, if I can get it to come up again, you have this, right? With different things and a message if you have an error. If you right click here, you have three options: copy the command, send to Python window, or save it as a full script. If we say, send it to a Python window, so this is the code that runs the buffer tool. I don't know why there's all this white space. I haven't figured that out. So you know that 50 kilometers didn't work, right? So you want 10 kilometers, you just type that in, hit return, and it does 10 for you. So you can try all sorts of different distances or whatever the tool is very quickly. Because you're in this Python window within Pro, you don't need to do the setup of the workspace, import modules, etc. So this is really handy because how many times have you're like, well, I don't know quite what size, blah, blah, blah. So you can change it right there, okay? So that is really critical. The other thing is there's a lot of things that happen when you right click, okay? And it's like I had never seen copy coordinates before or what's here. This is like a Google Earth thing, right? And this is just a right click on the data frame. The same thing with right clicking on the feature classes, right? So data export is one of my favorite shortcuts. If I have, especially if I'm making a map and I want to highlight, like there's 5 counties that I want to highlight differently. And yes, I can tweak the symbology on a single feature class, but it's quicker if I just select those 5 counties, do a data export, rename it as like county subset, and then I can symbolize that differently. That is a really, really nice thing. I don't do some of these other things. The other really nice trick, let's see, did Pro take it away? It looks like Pro moved one of my favorite ArcMap tricks. Do you see ArcMap now? I hope. If you've ever, so if I want to draw something somewhere, why can't I do that? I don't know why I can't do that.
Don't see ArcMap, by the way.
You don't see ArcMap.
Yeah, we just see Pro.
All right, let me do a quick switch. The old Zoom used to share like a single computer screen and anything that was on there was shared. And for some reason, it doesn't do that anymore. Okay, you should see ArcMap now with ugly green counties.
Yep.
So what I was trying to do was draw, and my draw tool is disabled, which really kind of stinks. However, so sometimes I want to clip, I want to make a polygon just for a clip area. Okay, I'm going to have a whole bunch of different sort of a area of interest. So I want to just draw a polygon and use that. It's easier if it's a feature class.
I think the tool you want is to the left of the text one. The
oh, you're right. That's the thing. Duh. How many times have I done this? So, okay. So I want to make a feature class just to use as a clip. Okay. You draw it. Sometimes that's easier. And then you go and you right click and you say, convert graphics to features. It converts all your graphics or some of your graphics, whichever you want, to a feature class. Make sure you select what you want the coordinate system to be, and you can have it automatically delete it. Okay. And then you have a feature class and there's no information in it, but that doesn't matter because it's just a clip shape, right? So that's one of my favorite ArcMap tips or tricks or whatever. So those are my demos. If anybody has questions or wants to see something in particular, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going.
I think in Pro, there's on some of the geoprocessing tools, there's like for clip or raster, I think it's raster mask or something. They have a button to draw a little temporary feature right within the tool, which is another helpful thing sometimes because then
really? Is it imagery?
No.
If you try opening one of the tools, like go to your toolbox and maybe clip might have it.
I think it also depends on which
Pencil?
version of Pro you have, because I know early versions, they did not have anything like the draw tool.
There it is.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, excellent. Oh yeah, that's very nice. So as you see, I have not gotten deeply into Pro. It's just still so much faster for me to stay in ArcMap, but that's really good. These are really, really useful tips for me. So thank you for that.
I appreciate it too, because I didn't know you could do that. So great tip.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so back to slides. Whoops, don't do that. Stop share. Screen share. Okay, do you see a slide now again?
Yes.
Good.
We
We're
can actually
actu-
see the presenter view now.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry, what?
You're in the presenter view. We're not just seeing one single slide. We're seeing also the next slide.
So when I open up screen sharing, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screens. It's actually not the screens, it's the
There's a difference between desktops and programs.
right.
what you mean.
Yeah. Okay. How about now?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yay. Okay. Okay. Another Python script template thing, I made my own. Okay. Especially because I would forget, I would get stuck on how to start. So I created basically a template. It's called Start Here, original name. Oops, sorry, 1 point. The hashtag in Python means that it's not Python code. So you use it to make comments and explanations. So Python will not read this text that is after the hashtag, okay? So that's my start here .py. This text right here are in the template itself. They stay there all the time. Right, and it gives me sort of prompts of what to do. Then this is the text that I actually typed in, okay? Python will, depending on what IDE you use, your text will be different colors, okay? So I typed data creation is this, the purpose is this, and then import module, which I forgot to do a lot when I was first beginning, and then set workspace. So you basically want to do those for almost every single thing that you do. There are exceptions, of course, but they're good best practices, okay? And if you see, Zoom is in the way. This geodatabase title tells me that they're Illinois base layers, roads, boundaries, etc. They're in UTM WS84 16 North, and it was last updated in 2019. So, and there is the folder base layers. So I have other geodatabases in that folder. This is my main one that I use all the time. Okay, so again, the name tells you what's in it. Oh, that didn't work. Okay. Besides ArcGIS, there are all sorts of other shortcuts, right? Most people are familiar with the Control-C for copy, Control-Z for undo. Not everybody knows that Control-Z, undo. This works in some GIS at some places. Hiding the ribbon, refresh in Arc, especially this was important in ArcMap when things hung sometimes. Sometimes you could refresh with F5. Renaming hit F2 instead of having to click in the right place. So this is in File Explorer. This is a really nice one. In File Explorer, if you want to copy the full path of a file, you can hold down the shift and then click it, right click it. And there'll be an option that you don't see usually, open path. Insert rows. Some of these actually work in GIS now. They didn't used to. Find the location of a file. If you've downloaded, say you've downloaded it and you just click download and you don't know where it went and it's in the bottom left of your screen or whatever, right click it. One of your options is open file location. I use that a lot. Okay, bookmarks in NEARC and in Word, and word styles. So I know this has nothing to do directly with data or metadata, but these are very, very useful. So use the tools that are available, okay? Again, not everything will work for everybody. If anybody wants an example of the template in Word with the styles, drop me an email and I'll send it to you. And then you can just copy and paste them and you can edit them too. Another thing is use tags. Tags don't work well for me. I have a hard time remembering to use them. Keywords and metadata are fine, but I do have a hard time with tags. I think they're a great idea. So, you know, try them out. They're a good idea, but again, you have to use them more than just occasionally for them to work. Okay, the other big thing is you have to clean up things once in a while. I try and do like, you know, back when I went into work, I have 40 minutes before I can leave. I don't want to start a new editing session. Let's go clean up my files. So you have to go tidy things up. I'll have a typo in a file name so that it doesn't sort correctly. That happens a lot. I have folders in my temp folder that I didn't know what to do with that I now have to file correctly. And so you just have to sort of clean up your stray files, you know, tidy up. It doesn't have to take a long time. So the two major parts of data management that take a little longer, but are well worth it, are data management plans and metadata, or README, which is just informal metadata. Okay, before we go on, questions or comments? Were any of those remotely useful?
So, yes, I think so. There is a question, any advice or insights regarding metadata in ArcGIS Online, which I think kind of ties into your tags question, but not complete, or issue, but not completely. Have you dealt with metadata in ArcGIS Online much?
I have some. I don't, again, I'm not a fan of ArcGIS
Tags.
Online,
Yeah.
but I have to use it, especially now because we're using Survey 123 to collect data. Okay, so there are spots, right, where it has like along the right side, it'll have description and it'll have tags. Just think of them as keywords. And it is really important because a lot more people are going to see those files. Okay, in my case, they're going to be photographs that are made into points. There's going to be all these different data layers, and there are going to be several people that just have to open up ArcGIS Online to see it. So there better be some explanation of what those files are. I don't have any real tricks for that. You can copy and paste, you can select and copy and paste just like you're in Word with a lot of things like that in AGO. So I would definitely do that. You may end up having a sort of a template in Word on your hard drive where you can just snag pieces that go into metadata easily and do a copy paste, which seems kind of clunky. But I don't know any tricks. I would love to hear if other people do. Because again, ArcGIS Online, it's meant for sharing. And so you really have to have metadata, at least basic. I'm sorry, I can't really give you much help there.
Well, I think part of it is that ArcGIS Online is it's a whole new environment that we're all sort of adapting to. So we're still all at the beginner stage. Someone else in the Q&A have said that they've given up on Esri catalog for full field level metadata, and they've been using the USGS metadata wizard, and there is a link in the session Q&A if people would like to look at that. And Sarah Moulton posted this, and she was wondering if other people are using it. And then also Juliet Swigor, I hope I pronounced your name right, finds that ArcMap doesn't function well when accessing deeply nested files on a network. Has this been a problem for you? I'll say it's been a problem for me, and I have some bad network connections. So I'd like to hear, has this been a problem for you, Peg, or anyone else?
It has not for me that I know of. More often the times that I've seen that seems to be a problem is it turns out there's a space or a symbol way up at the top beginning of the path. I have not though. That doesn't mean that doesn't happen. And in which case it's an argument for short file names and well-organized data. And it might be kind of a pain because you have to keep it at a higher level. I do have a GIS data folder at my second to top level. So my GIS data aren't buried very far. So I have, it's like the C drive, I have all things, and then I have UIUC for all my work stuff. And then right then I have a GIS data folder. So it's only 3 levels in. So that might be why I don't have issues also. Has anybody else had issues?
Or suggestions?
Or suggestions. In the meantime, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say one of the things is it depends on your network also.
Yeah, it could be our network is the issue. It's hard to tell, but I have definitely steered away from nesting my work, because of that, and it becomes a challenge to keep track of, the versioning and dating of files that way. But I just wondered if other people experienced that.
Yeah, it's hard to tell with errors, different things that happen. It's so hard to pinpoint where the issue is, right? I did want to comment on the USGS data metadata format tool. USGS has great data management tips, templates, information. It is the first place that I will look for detailed examples. It's also scientific research, so it fits my topics. Often I can find sort of similar topics. I have not used that USGS metadata tool in particular, but I have seen it and I have thought about it. So if that person who said that, does it work well for you?
Yep, this is Sarah. I posted that. Yeah, I like it a lot. I just got so frustrated with the Esri catalog version to get down into describing the fields the way I wanted to describe them, that I've been using the USGS metadata wizards for the past several years, and I like it a lot.
So can you attach it to a feature class?
No, that's the problem.
That's
That's why
okay.
I put the most basic information I can in associated with the art, the catalog thing. And then I put a link into that as to where you can get the wizard metadata, because I can export it as a XML file. And so
Right.
I have a link to where people can get the XML file.
That's good. That works well.
Yeah.
You can also attach. I wonder if you could attach an XML.
Oh, I hadn't thought to do that.
Yeah, you can attach like photographs. You can attach things now and documents to feature classes. I've only used it for photos, but yeah, that works. That's something I think I will look into, especially because I don't like prose metadata.
Right, that's
So-
very helpful because I've been worried about it getting lost, detached. So I like the idea of attaching it. I hadn't gotten to that point. I just put a link in, but to put it with the feature class itself would be the best.
Yeah, and so you have to, the attachments, well, actually, this was in old art catalog, so I don't know about Pro. They'll create sort of 2 other or 3 other sort of sub files. And so it looks kind of strange because you don't know why there's these other files that get created with the feature class, but those are key to the attachment. So you'll have to, look at the help or whatever. And I haven't done it in Pro, so it might be improved.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, metadata. And we have 5 minutes.
Yes.
Okay. We all know what it is. We all know the purpose, I hope. Tips. The level of detail has to balance with how much time you have. Okay. Compromises are sometimes necessary. Use templates. This is ArcMap in particular, and in Arc Pro, there's a link. If you have metadata in one feature class and you want basically it to come into a different one, metadata importer, not import metadata, metadata importer. Here's the Pro link. Okay. I usually have a file geodatabase. I have some general project information that will fit my feature classes. So I create it for the file geodatabase. And then when I create my feature classes, I do a metadata import from that geodatabase and then edit it to fit the feature class. READMEs, these are very important. Informal metadata, they are very useful. I have READMEs in many folders, not for as many files, but for many folders because I have complex things. You can get a template, you can make a template so that it prompts you to fill in the information, okay? I wanna get to one thing, data management plans. dmptool.org is your friend. Data management plans are wonderful. There are templates, they prompt you for what to put in them. If you fill out a data management plan while you're going, you will have so much information documented. So look into it, please, okay? So I didn't get into a lot of things, but I think we covered a lot of interesting topics and good questions. If anybody has questions or if people want a longer version of this that had some more detailed slides, if anybody wants that, just please email me. And my email is, where is it? It's gone. There's my email. No, it's not.
We can't see your email yet.
Yeah,
All we
I'm
can see
working
is a
on
very,
it.
A very cute dog.
yes.
You see a very cute dog.
Yes.
Some cool looking socks.
That's my mom is fixing my dog's toy and my dog is being attentive. So that's interesting. My screen share stopped when I got to the end. So I don't know what you see now. My email is mag6, MAG6 at illinois.edu. It is also in some of the beginning slides. That's what I was looking for, since I seem to not be properly screen sharing. It should also be in the virtual agenda in my description. Any other suggestions, Carol?
Actually, someone asked, how would you teach these skills in a classroom setting in a GIS course?
I would give them the sort of basics, and then I would make them do it from scratch. So for metadata, and my students did not like me when I did this. I will preface, okay? I gave them the basics, and I tried to, say, this is really important. And so then for a quiz, I gave them 5 questions that all they had to do was go into the metadata and look for the answers. So trying to get them to use it to see what was in it, okay? Boy, were they mad. Boy, were they just like, well, and I'm thinking, this is a piece of cake. Open the metadata, do a search, so they have to do it themselves. The other thing I did, and boy, they didn't like this either. I came back from Botswana with 40 feature, well, these were shapefiles a long time ago that somebody there had shared with me. Okay, some of them were things I could have downloaded, but some of it was actual data, local data. Okay, no metadata at all. Of course, no information about the coordinate system. I was in the Southern Hemisphere. They used lat long, so I had to make sure everything was converted, but we were doing a project on African wild dogs. I gave them these data layers as examples, and they would look for it and they go, well, what is this? I don't know what it is. And I'd say, well, read the metadata. Well, there isn't metadata. Oh, really? And they did not appreciate that lesson whatsoever. But it got through to a couple people. So, that was my victory, was they have to experience it, and they have to make the mistakes and do it, because otherwise they just won't get it. And they would get points off if they gave me data with no metadata. They learned that quickly. But that was just one class, so they have to do it. And I do have some teaching slides that I haven't looked at in a long time. I'll look through them. If I find something that's useful, I can drop you an email if you email me. I should be able to. I have too many things open. Carol, can you put my email in the chat so that it's visible?
Yeah, I am being mentally unalert right now. So if you could tell me your email again.
Okay, so my work is MAG6.
And all lowercase?
All lowercase.
Okay.
M as in Mary, AG6 at illinois.edu.
And everybody will find out if I can spell Illinois. So it should be in the chat right now. Peg, if you want to double check it after we're done and correct it if we need to, that would be great.
Okay.
I think we've covered everybody's questions. I will say a lot of people liked, or several people liked, your idea of using those last 40 minutes of the day to clean up your data. And are there any other questions anyone has?
And if anyone does, they feel free to email me later. I'm happy to, because it makes me think about different things. If not, either way, thank you for your time and attention and patience with my pictures on my screens.
Well, I'd like to say thank you very much. This has been really helpful for me. And I actually have been doing GIS since the NEARC info command line days. So I've learned a lot, and I'm sure some other people have. And thanks to everyone who's like shared some suggestions of other websites of how to manage metadata and problems and just comments.
Oh, well, you're welcome. It's been fun. Oh, one last thing. So I do have several slides that have good links on them, good web pages. And I'm happy to share the slides if people want them, but if they just want the links, is there a way to do that? Or should I just, if people want them, they can email me?
I think, Kristen, I think we're going to have to ask you, is that possible?
So you want to share the links on the chat?
Well, I have several slides worth. So
we
maybe,
could, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, so we wouldn't want to put them in the chat because there's too many. So it would be best if I saved them at 5 slides in PowerPoint and maybe emailed them to people so that they would still be live links for the most part. Or people can just email me and ask if they want them.
Or is there a way to post both like the full PowerPoint and then a smaller PowerPoint of just those slides would be the other way we could do it?
Yeah, you could email them to me and I can add them to the agenda item on the website if you'd like.
Okay, I will do that. Should I email you the whole
I'll
PowerPoint?
grab your email from the chat and send you a note. How's that?
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you, everybody. I hope there were some useful tidbits and funny pictures. That was my dog who hasn't talked, which I'm pretty amazed at. So, okay, everybody, it was nice to meet you. Thank you for the invitation to talk about data management. And if anybody doesn't have anybody, and if nobody has any more questions, then I guess we'll say goodbye. Carol, any questions?
I actually did have one. So do you, on a calendar basis, say, oh, this would be a good time? You know, it's a quarter, it's an end of a semester, it's the end of field season, clean up all my data? Or is it just, as you say, you just nibble at the edges whenever you get a chance?
I actually try and do an overhaul, or at least check everything once a month. And of course that doesn't always happen, and that's when my 40 minutes at the end of the day, or 10 minutes or whatever, helps me some. And again, it never all gets cleaned up. I always have a temp folder with these stray files. Okay, it's just I just never get 100% on top of it. So it's kind of dependent for me. Like over Christmas break, I'll definitely take a thorough look. I want to sort of tidy up. There's some metadata files that need to be checked to make sure I have like updated information and things like that. So, but I do try and do it once a month. And I try and look for tips, actually. I try and look for juicy little tidbits. I used to do it once a week on Monday mornings. I would spend a couple hours cruising the web looking for GIS and remote sensing tricks. And I have gotten away from that, probably because I don't do remote sensing anymore.
Okay, well, I need a structure is what you're telling me.
And the more you do it from the beginning, the happier you'll be. But I certainly do not have everything perfect or even close. But so, one thing with the metadata, I try and tell people at least put in like the who, what, when, where, why, okay? Keywords, abstract description, at least put in these basic things. And if I can get that, it gets to such a degree that if I can get that from people, I'm happy, because I can't get anything else, right? So a big thing is with field names, if they don't fill in the field name description. So when I create metadata, I do those obvious sort of easy things first, and I do my field name description. And I don't always get to the rest of it. And that's probably going to bite me in the butt sometime. But time-wise, I really feel like the powers that be don't have any idea of the catastrophe that is awaiting us without stress on data organization and management and metadata. There's a statistic I found said that after 20 years, only 20% of the data, so if a data set is 20 years old, only 20% of those data sets are still available. And those are the data that are actually shared. That doesn't include all the data that are used in papers but never published. So doing this historical tick paper opened my eyes a great deal. You think you put your data in your published paper, you think that you provide what they need, and it's amazing the effort that had to go into extracting data from papers. It was magnitudes greater than I would have expected to get 10 data points, So that's another thing, is publishing your data and giving access to it. But I didn't get to any sharing or whatever, but I cover, these are the most important points. I tried to start at the most important and work my way down.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a never-ending process, and part of it is that the data, even older data, will change if it's only available in one place now, or it's not available at all, or whatever. Yeah. So, but it's great to see everyone here, and I guess we should call it a day because the closing session is coming up in about 4 minutes. So again, thank you, Peg. I definitely learned a lot. I think some other people did too.
Great. Thank you very much. Have a good day, everybody.